If you own a construction business, how would you like to have a team filled with A players? What are A players even looking for? How might you be getting in the way of that? This episode is all about how to hire and retain A players for your construction business. Welcome to the Construction Leading Edge podcast from constructionleadingedge.com. My name is Todd Dawalt, spelled D-A-W-A-L-T. I'm your host. And here at Construction Leading Edge, we're all about helping construction business owners have more freedom, more impact, and more wealth by systematizing your construction business. Think self-managing company, a business that runs profitably without you. So here's what you're going to get from this interview with Isaac Barlow. He's the founder and former CEO of Busybusy, and Derrik Shakespear, who is the current Chief Revenue Officer of Busybusy. Here's what we talk about. We talk about what it means to have a flat culture and what it means to have a culture of extreme ownership, why a lot of owners and managers hire people 1 to 2 levels below them, and the problems that causes. There's a question that every manager should ask themselves before hiring someone. Before you hire the next person, this is a question you should ask yourself. Derrik talks about how to avoid hiring an activist employee. We talk about how to smoke those activists and those bad hires out so you can prevent bad hires. And Derrik shares an exercise involving 6 words that you can use the next time you interview somebody. This interview is full of nuggets of wisdom from people who have hired and fired hundreds of people with decades of combined experience. So let's get to it. Welcome to the podcast, guys. Isaac, welcome back to the podcast. I believe this is your third time on the podcast. I'll let you introduce yourself, talk briefly about your background, and then Derrik, I'll ask you to do the same.
My background is actually in the construction industry, started out in construction, specifically excavation and land development, both commercial and residential excavation, and, leading more into commercial and land development towards the end of, or latter part of my career, I should say. I'm still in it, still on part of an excavation company, and so I still deal with that. And then through the course of time and dealing with the frustrations I dealt with as far as collecting data and getting the information I needed from my company, I ended up having an idea to found a company that helped solve that. And that's where Busybusy came from. So I'm the former CEO now and original founder of Busybusy. So founded Busybusy back in 2010. And that was founded to really assist the construction industry in getting basically business intelligence, or sometimes we call it job site intelligence. Try to collect the data, focusing on labor data and then all kinds of other data that connects with your labor. Anyway, so founded and grew that company. Brought in, our topic today is A players, brought in significant A players like, Derrik Shakespear, who's on this recording with us, is one of the best A players Busybusy brought in. And so we grew that company up, and then last year sold it. So we sold it to Riverside Company as part of a Tool Watch acquisition. And Derrik is still in that company. I'm on the board of that company now. I'm no longer on the operating side of that company. There's a new CEO that's running the combination of that company, and Derrik is the head of all marketing and sales over all the divisions. So that's been just a fantastic journey and about a 13-year journey for Busybusy. And then today I'm focused on land development of a technology center in our hometown of St. George. So where Busybusy still is, where Derrik is and I am, is St. George, Utah, and we're I'm working on developing a technology center there and just kind of bringing together various technology companies there to create a technology community, from a physical environment point of view. And so a lot of still in construction, right? Still my blood.
Derrik, welcome to the Construction Leading Edge podcast. I'll let you introduce yourself, talk about a little bit about your background, and then we'll talk about the Busybusy story. But give us a brief introduction.
Well, I appreciate being here. I've listened to the podcast a number of times. I found out about this podcast right when I started working at Busybusy because one of my top employees, one of my A players, said, "Hey, you should listen to this. It'll help you understand a little bit more in correlation to what the industry is struggling with." And I've really appreciated the content that's been driven. As far as my story, I'll start with the construction part of my story. I worked construction in high school. My best friend's dad was a general contractor, and he self-performed a lot of the work. And so in high school, when I could fit it in between sports or during the summer, I was swinging a hammer and doing roofing, doing framing mostly, because those were the 2 places he did a lot of self-performing. But residential home builder, so that's where it started. had a real affinity for it, went off to college, went into sales and marketing, started to grow a lot of different businesses. The way that Isaac and I came in touch is I ended up being an investor at Busybusy. So I was growing another company, and we were one of the fastest growing companies in America. We were in the Inc. 50 years in a row, and Isaac and I got introduced. I invested in Busybusy, and over time we became really good friends, and he was reaching out. We'd go to lunch and talk sales and marketing. And as we continued to blend our stories, then he started recruiting me to come over to Busybusy. And when Caterpillar invested in Busybusy, I looked at it and said, well, if a $90 billion company at the time is saying, hey, this is where I want to invest, then maybe I should look at this a little bit closer. And especially because for them to see it, we don't just serve the equipment audience. We serve all specialty contractors and self-performing GCs. And so as I'm looking at what they wanted to do, again, it was one of those places where I'm like, gosh, I should probably look at this a little bit more closely. So I came over to Busybusy 7.5 years ago, Chief Revenue Officer, Busybusy. Back in November, we got acquired. As Isaac mentioned, we're now part of a larger group called Align Technologies, or Align Ops. And that organization owns 4 different product lines. We've got Busybusy, which is a labor management time tracking solution. We've got Fleet Watcher that does a ton for the paving and earthwork group. We've got a Tool Watch product that is for asset tracking. And then we've got a safety reports product. And so now we're talking about an organization that's trending over the next couple of years to be over $1 billion valuation. I'm running and still have the title of Chief Revenue Officer there. And I think that's the primary reason that I'm on the podcast, is because, Todd, I'm not special, but I found a way to hire great people, find great people, build a system and process around those people, and try to make it less about me and more about them. And that's been really the secret to the success that we had at Busybusy, and the secret that we're having at Align Ops right now.
So give us an idea of the scale. How many customers, how many construction businesses are clients of yours?
Busybusy specifically has over 100,000 individual contractors that are using the product every day, and over 12,000 individual organizations. As far as Align Ops collectively, we'll be by end of year approaching about 20,000 organizations and over 200,000 individual employees that touch and interact with these independent software products.
You said you started with Busybusy 7.5 years ago, something like that. What have been some of the biggest changes you saw as Busybusy grew, Derrik?
I would say culturally was the biggest change, really independently working with Isaac on creating a culture of extreme ownership and creating what we call a flat culture. We were really deliberate about making sure that we did not hire people that we ever had to be cheerleaders for. Like really, really intentional about saying, if we're hiring someone that we have to motivate or we have to constantly cheer for rather than remove barriers and mentor, then we've got the wrong people.
I want to talk about extreme ownership, but what do you mean by flat culture?
Easiest way to describe that would be going back to one of the last conversations Isaac and I had before I joined here. And I think he knew that that's what I was going to say, why we both smiled at the same time. So Isaac started recruiting me pretty heavily about 6 months before I came to Busybusy. And as we kept talking, and I got pretty close to leaving the organization that I was at, I had a conversation with him that really boiled down to one question that I asked him. And when I share the question that I asked, a lot of people on here are like, if somebody asked me that, I'm the owner, I'm the founder, I wouldn't even want to hire that person. But the question was this. I said, Isaac, if I'm going to come to Busybusy, what I want to understand and know is, who do you work for? And I pause and he looks at me, and it's a loaded question. He's looking at me with that same like, gosh, you want a certain answer and I don't know what that is. And so his answer was, well, I think I work for the board. I think I work for our investors. And I said, okay, is that it? And he's like, yeah, I mean, really, those are the people that I report to. And so it's the board and it's the investors. And I said, okay, well, if I come to Busy, you work for me. And what I mean by that is this is not a power play. This is not a I'm more important than you. This is, I want you to understand how I view the people I hire. Because any person that I hire, my job is not to have them work for me. My job is to allow them to succeed and for me to work for them. And so if I'm bringing people into the organization and I'm working for them, the thing that will ultimately create failure for them or success is if you're blocking me. I need your support. When I come to you, I don't walk, I don't jog, I sprint. And when I come to you and say, I have a problem, I need you to get this out of my way. I need to know that you've got me in a way that you work for me because I am going to serve the people that I hire. It's extremely important that they understand that my entire responsibility is to ensure their success and ensure that they do not fail. And I can't do that unless I'm working for them. So when you look at it culturally, Todd, going back to the question that you asked, what do you mean by a flat culture? Traditionally, you look at an organization and it has a hierarchy that's all drawn up and all of these leaders that boils down and down and down. We're not interested in that. I don't care what your title is. I care how well you do it because the thing that you're hired to do is just as important as everybody else. And the only time a title matters is when a decision has to be made. And outside of that, push where you're supposed to push and stand where you're supposed to stand and lift where you're standing.
That's more of instead of the top-down hierarchy, it's almost like a sideways organizational chart, or maybe even an upside-down organizational chart where the manager is supporting the people working for those people. I love that.
Part of the way we always defined it is we're trying to maximize our employees' potential. Whoever it is, our goal is to maximize their potential, help them be the best they can possibly be.
That's diametrically opposed to the way some people think about hiring, especially small business owners. I think a lot of small business owners are more of what Michael Gerber would call the genius with 1,000 helpers in his book, The E-Myth. I'm the genius and I just need you to do stuff for me. And I'm the mad scientist and I just need minions, basically, which doesn't work.
It's statistically proven most people hire individuals who are 1 or 2 levels below them. And then they wonder why they get production 1 or 2 levels below them.
Isaac, explain what a culture of extreme ownership means to you.
Derrik is a good example of extreme ownership. And, I'm not saying that just because he's here, I would say it to anybody, but I tell someone to hire their position. Like I hired I had my 2 top executives in the company, which was Derrik Shakespear and Brigham Timpson. Then I had different others that report to me. And I would tell them, your highest income potential is when you take extreme ownership of your position. And what does extreme ownership means? It means that that the buck stops with you. You are taking charge of everything. Like when Derrik had a problem in sales or marketing, that was his problem. He knew it was his problem. He took full ownership of that. If there was something I could do to help him with that, he would come to me and say, here's what you can do to help me. But he knew at the end of the day, it was his problem. It wasn't, and you look at it as a leader, how much do you want to torture yourself, right? How much do you want to take on all the problems? And so if someone's got a monkey on their back and they just walk in your office and throw that monkey onto you, it doesn't help anything. But if they have extreme ownership where they're dealing with it, they're fully owning that responsibility, whatever it is. And then when they come to you, it's more for help, saying, okay, I got this problem. I can solve it 1 of 3 ways. I need some advice on which way I should choose, or I've got this problem. I know how I can solve it and I need some help on solving it. And so they're just taking extreme ownership. So whatever their position is, whether it's, chief revenue officer like Derrik or chief operations officer, chief financial officer, whatever the case is, extreme ownership is they're the ones that the buck stops with. They're up at night thinking about it. They're making sure they have full control and not throwing that onto somebody else at any time.
Yeah. And does that extreme ownership extend to people below the C-level leadership? Is this something you push down through the whole organization? If so, what does that look like at the levels that are closest to the clients? Let's say on a sales person or a customer support person. What does extreme ownership look like at that level?
Derrik, you're probably better to speak to that.
Number one, yes, A players should be across the entire organization and ownership should be across the organization. Just like Isaac is saying, hey, my job as the CEO is to find a couple executives that were A players that had this extreme ownership. Todd, the reason that we can turn our organization upside down, the way you described it is the way I describe it. I called it flat culture because that's more commonly known if you type it in online. But in an interview and when I'm meeting with people, I will tell them, like, take the diagram and flip it upside down because we are running an organization upside down because at every single level, all I want are A players. And how I would define that would be a couple things. Number one, you recognize an A player pretty quickly when they start using language like my customer. Think about a concrete guy who's out on a job site and something goes wrong. And if you have that supervisor, that foreman back in the office saying, there's absolutely no way that the job that we did there is good enough for our customer, for my customer. Like, that's when you know this is my person. That's the person. When I have this level of ownership that their customer, your customer at an organization level is their customer at a personal level, you've got the right person. Ownership is what I would point to immediately. And it's interesting that Isaac started with extreme ownership because I would say that's where you're going to, it's very cyclical. That's where you're going to recognize these A players is who's taking ownership of the experience, of the finished product, who's saying we have to find a way or we have to fix this because that's your A player. And anybody who's okay with mediocrity, Jocko Willink, who wrote the book Extreme Ownership, says it's not what you preach, it's what you tolerate. Like that ultimately ends up being your culture.
Anytime I'm in a business, I can tell the level of ownership somebody has, whether it's in a restaurant or a construction business or a store, by the pronoun they use when they refer to their business. When I ask somebody like, hey, ask a server, and they refer to their restaurant with the pronoun they, well, they do this and they do that and they like this. That's not a sign of ownership. I've been inside companies where there was this mysterious they that needed to do things. Well, they need to train these guys and they need to hire better people and they need to plan better. Who is this mysterious, omnipotent, omniscient they? It's we. So when I hear my client, my customer, my project, we need to solve this problem, that's an indication of ownership to me. Yeah, I love that. So I want to go back to something you mentioned, Derrik. A lot of managers and owners will hire people 1 to 2 levels below them. So if they're like a 7 or an 8 on a scale of 1 to 10, they'll hire a 5 or 6. And then they wonder why they're not going anywhere. Why do people do that? What prevents them from hiring people equal to them or even better? What do you think, Derrik? And then I'll ask you the same question, Isaac.
Insecurity and pride. People are so driven by power in a way that they're constantly trying to validate their role. And if they would just relax and understand that validation comes from allowing people to succeed at a level they never have. So many times people are afraid to hire someone so great that, well, they might be too good and then they'll just leave. It's like, no. If you will take a step back and allow greatness, those people will never leave because you've unleashed something that they've looked for their whole life. And that is somebody that allows them to take ownership in a way that, again, it's an A player thing, right? Like you're not going to give a C player the ability to take that ownership because they don't want it and they'll leave. But you want those people to leave. You didn't even want to hire them in the first place. So if you can just understand like, hey, everybody has imposter syndrome sometimes. It's hard to run a business and sometimes you don't feel qualified. But don't let that leak into an insecurity in a way that now you're hiring someone less than you that's actually going to cause you a ton of problems. I'll add one other thing to it because I love this quote. There's an executive from Chick-fil-A who said, people want to compete with us in the championship, but the reality is they lost in the draft. These organizations, construction or any business, are constantly looking around going like, oh, I want to be that company. but you're so insecure and so prideful based on the power that you want to hold that you're never going to be that company, because that company has players that you're not attracting and you're not hiring and you're not retaining.
I want to restate something that tell me if I got this right, Derrik. Validation comes from allowing or helping people to achieve success at a level that you never have. Did I hear that right?
Yeah, your validation as an owner, as a leader, should come from people experiencing success that they've never experienced in their career.
Isaac, what do you think? Why do people, especially small business owners, tend to hire people who are 1 to 2 levels below them?
So insecurity was the first word that was going to come out of my mouth as well. That's why I kind of laughed. And, Derrik and I haven't worked together for almost a year now, but you can tell we've worked together for a long time. But insecurity is absolutely the case. A lot of people figure it's pride and ego, but it's not. It's usually fear. They're afraid of somebody coming in better than them. They're afraid of not looking good. And so really a leadership has to develop a certain level of humility. And it's not that they need to not lead. I'm not an advocate of that at all. They need to lead, but they need to learn what their role is. And so when they take extreme ownership of their role, like I've talked to the business owner, the CEO, the president, the owner, whoever it is, their role as the CEO, my role as the CEO is to line out the vision. This is where we're going. This is who we are. This is what we're doing, so that people know whether they want to join us or not. And to hire the very best people that I can possibly hire to help achieve that vision. That's my role. You don't want to be insecure in that role. And the problem is sometimes what people see their role as is, my role is to achieve those things, right? And it's no, your role is to guide that vision and to hire the highest and most qualified talent you can possibly get to achieve that vision. And so stop being insecure. Do your role. If I'm hiring great people, that's part of my validation, right? I'm finding these great people. I'm empowering them, helping them to work for us and guide toward the vision. That's how they need to, I guess you might say, feel satisfied in doing their job, instead of thinking that I need to be better than everybody. I was at a meeting with a guy, and he, similar to what Derrik had said, he says, I can do every single thing in my company down to like, I think he was a hotel owner. He said, down to like fixing the toilet. I can do everything better than anybody else in my company. And I thought, wow, I don't want to be you. I just don't want to be that person. And I think that what you do is you kind of put yourself in a prison. Instead of hiring great people to help you succeed in your business, by being insecure and by saying, I don't want to hire anybody greater than me, you really put yourself in a prison where you just have to do everything and you can't escape it and you can't achieve what you're after. So yeah, I think it's insecurity, and I would add fear to that.
I think to add to that, Todd, what Isaac's talking about, the opposite experience should exist, where a leader should have moments of humility and realizing how fortunate they are for the people that have chosen to work with them. We took our entire organization to Cancun about 2 years ago. And we had a goal. We worked for about 4 years. And when we accomplished that goal, we took everybody down there. While we were there, we gathered everybody together and had them sitting on these steps. And Isaac and Brigham and I spoke to them. One of the greatest moments of my entire career, and I've managed and hired sales teams and marketing teams for 21 years now, was standing in front of that group of people, looking up the stairs, and genuinely tears coming down my face, realizing I can't believe that this many great people wanted to work with me. I can't believe. It was so humbling to look across that group of people and go, these people could be doing anything, and they're here with us, like saying they want to work with us. Those are the moments that you want as a leader. You don't need the power, because the power comes from giving the power to the people who are executing the things that you shouldn't be able to do as well as they can do them. Like Isaac talked about, find someone that cares more about fixing a toilet better than you.
Let's talk about A players. I'll ask both of you this question. Derrik, you can go first. What is an A player in your opinion, and what are they looking for?
What is an A player? An A player is somebody who takes ownership. Somebody, you said it really well, Todd. If they're saying they all the time, it's not them. If they're saying us and my and we, those are your A players. At a hierarchy level, one of the things, there's a podcast, the guy's name's Alec Hormozy, and he does a podcast on A players. And when he was talking about it, one of the things he said that I absolutely loved is he said the person who cares the most should be in charge. So if you ever notice somebody on a team who's caring more than the leader, you've got a problem. That's another way where I would identify an A player. He gave an example there where he knew immediately he had hired the right person because he had asked this lady to send out a bunch of swag to their customers. And she came in and presented and said, I ordered all this crap and it's crap. Like I thought I had the right things and I was going to show you guys what we were going to get. And I'm not sending that to my customers. And she said, but what I did find was this other manufacturer that can make the shirts and this other person who can do the screen printing. And that is something that we can be proud of. And he's like, I'm sitting there going, thank you for taking this off my plate. And that's something that I frequently have said to people when I know that I've made the right hires is, thank you for taking this off my plate. Thank you for making my job easier. Those are phrases. If you're not using those phrases when you're talking with the people that you've hired, then you don't have an A player.
Isaac, what about you? In your opinion, what are A players looking for, Isaac?
I think A players are looking for an arena or an environment in which they can succeed at the highest level. It's a topic that's near and dear to my heart, but you have to create an environment in your company that an A player wants to be at. And what does that mean? Put yourself in their shoes. And most people think they're A players. Like most people, the owners of the company, they think they're an A player. That's why they're out owning a company. And they might be. They might be. But one question to always ask yourself is, would I work for me? If you remove yourself, would I work in this organization? Would I work for me? An organization that's identical to this? Because what A players are looking for, number one, is opportunity, right? They want the opportunity to succeed. They want hope. They want training. They want data. They want analytics. They want to know. I often compare it to sports analytics or, basketball, football. Like when we track information like Busybusy, we track all kinds of data, right, for the company. And some people are like, oh, I don't want to be tracked. Do you think Michael Jordan didn't want to be tracked? Do you think Kobe Bryant didn't want to be tracked? A players, they want to succeed and they want to see the score. They want to know what they can do to do better. They want to know what training they can get into. And then they want to know how to use their talent to achieve the highest level of opportunity they can possibly achieve. What you should be scared of is people that don't want to be tracked and people that don't want to have that data, because it means, there's a reason. And the reason, it doesn't mean they're a terrible worker, right? Some people, it might just be a cultural thing where they just feel like, oh, you're big brother in me. However, it still takes them out of an A player qualification, because an A player wants the data because they want the opportunity to exceed at everything they're doing, or to excel at everything they're doing, and to achieve the highest amount of opportunity. I remember back when I was in the excavation and land development phase, I was working for the company, which was my brothers, my older brothers. I was working for the excavation company, and they sent me to Page, Arizona, and I was working by the hour. And I told them, guys, I just don't want to work by the hour. Like, can you give me any sort of incentive, percentage of profit, any motivation? Like, give me any sort of hope on the table. That's all I want. I just want something. Like, give me the biggest goal that you can offer and let me do that. Which they didn't, by the way. But that's, an A player wants to succeed. I often would refer to them as like a shark. They want to see blood in the water. They want to know, like, there's something I can do. There's something I can go after.
A players are looking for an opportunity to shine in a way that others aren't. A players would rather take a little bit less of a salary and have their production tied to bonuses so they can make more. I've intentionally engineered our organization where we try to attract a certain type of individual, and it's not people who are looking for the highest salary. It's people who are looking to provide the best experience to the customers. And for that, they'll out-earn anything that they could have gotten by having a really fixed rate. And so that's when Isaac's talking about this. It's interesting when you look at the adoption of technology in construction, because some organizations and some leadership are afraid to roll that technology out because, well, my guys don't want to be tracked. Well, they don't want it. And it's like, why would they not? Isaac said it perfect. Like, do you think Michael Jordan would ever even play checkers without like keeping score? I keep score of everything because I'm I'm just obsessed with, like, that's the point. And so when you're looking at, I think, a really good story that helps you understand when you have an A player and what it looks like. We had a company about 3 years ago that one of my account executives met with. And the guy looked at the product, the Busybusy product, and loved it. Like, saw what it would do for his business, saw how he could do job costing, understood how much easier it would make payroll. The guy's saying everything. And then he got to the end and he told the rep he wasn't going to move forward. And it was pretty shocking. The rep's like, okay, just out of curiosity, like, obviously it's your business. We're just here to help. But why would you not do this based on everything you said? And he said, because I'm afraid that my top supervisor would leave if I do this. A year later, Todd, this same business owner called that rep and said, Dustin, I got to buy your product today. And he's like, I haven't heard from him in a year. Like, and we get people who come back 6 months later and like, huge mistake, need to get this rolled out as soon as possible, but not at that jarring, like, okay, that candor, like, what happened? And he said, well, I'm actually embarrassed to tell you, but remember the supervisor that I told you would leave me if I did this? He ended up starting his own business. And he called me today and said, I just found the best thing for my business. It's called Busybusy. You have to try it. So here he was with an A player who he could have had bonuses around. He could have incentivized. He could have deployed technology and allowed the tracking and visibility to retain him as an employee. But he didn't. It not only cost him his best employee, but then that employee was referring him back to the product a year later. And that's, again, one of those like indicators of how important it is that your A players would want a scoreboard. They want the visibility into what they're doing, where they're at, what they got done. Like, one of the things that's fun with our product is that a lot of the companies will have employees take pictures every day when they're leaving the job site for liability purposes and documentation purposes. And a lot of our companies will tell us it turns into a game because people are so proud to show what they accomplished that day.
We'll get back to the episode in just a minute. Think about these two questions. First, do you have a clear, actionable plan? In other words, a strategy for your business for the next 12 months. Second, does your team know exactly where you're headed and how you plan to get there? If your business was a road trip, are you just driving aimlessly without a map, hoping you'll get there, or do you have a clear destination and a route? If your business was a football team, are you just running around the field without a game plan, playing pickup ball, or do you have a strategy to win the game, like the pros do? Here's the reality. As the leader, it's your job to create the strategy, and your team is counting on you for that. If you'd like some help with that, for a limited time, you can download our free strategic planning guide. It's the same guide that has helped hundreds of construction business owners gain clarity, set clear goals, and be able to communicate a winning strategy to their teams. In just 60 to 90 minutes, you'll map out your plan for the next year. No more guessing, no more drifting. And it's the first step toward designing the business that you want. In fact, it's the first step in our Systematize Your Construction Business program. If you want to get your hands on that, head over to constructionleadingedge.com/planning, PLANNING, to download your free strategic planning guide. Stop running around in circles. Stop just treading water. Get clarity on the vision and direction of your company. Go to constructionleadingedge.com/planning and download your free strategic planning guide today. The phrase that we use around here a lot is people need to know, what does winning look like? And leadership's job is to clearly articulate, this is what winning looks like. This is where the goalposts are. This is how we're keeping score, and you are winning. A players want to know if they're winning or not. And 10 years ago, I was brought in to run a utility company. And one of the things I did was I told each crew, like, this is your daily revenue target. This is what winning looks like for you. If you do this, you're winning. That means we're making money.
Yeah.
And one crew had a target of maybe $10,000 a day. That was their revenue target. So there was myself, and then there was Bruce, who was the superintendent, and then there was the crew. Well, the crew took it upon themselves. They got into a situation on a project that was like, looked like they could put some big points on the board. And they took it upon themselves to see how much revenue can we generate in one day. And they didn't ask, they didn't tell anybody. They certainly didn't ask permission, not that they needed to. And the next, like at the end of the day, they worked, they got a early start, they worked late. Those guys did $43,000 in revenue in one day. They 4x'd their revenue target on their own. And what a lot of people are probably thinking is, well, yeah, they probably came with their hand out asking for a raise. No, they didn't. They loved to win, and they knew they won, and they were high fives and butt smacks all around, and they went home happy. So yeah, A players, they want to know what winning looks like. They want to be told they're winning. They want to be tracked. They want to know what the score is. And the more you can gamify it, the more you can create that internal competition, the better, I've found.
What you're talking about there, again, Todd, going back to the question, what are A players looking for? They're looking to be trusted. They want to be seen, and they want to be validated. Like, you get that when you have a scoreboard and people get the celebration in a way that is like, that builds so much trust in being able to deploy them on the next project and be like, you got this. Like, you know this better than I do. Go do your thing.
As the leader, you've got to look at yourself like the coach. And those A players, they're the ones executing the game, and you're helping them. You're helping them get the game done.
I use the same analogy, and it's like, all right, imagine you're watching football a couple of years ago on a Sunday afternoon, and the camera pans over to Bill Belichick, and you see him like take the headset off, throw his clipboard down, and he runs out onto the field and like pushes the quarterback out of the way and says he's going to take a few snaps.
Yeah.
It's a mass confusion. And then after a few snaps, he goes back over to the sidelines and puts the headset back on, picks up the clipboard, was like, all right, you guys go ahead, continue on. I needed to take those snaps because they were really important. That's the same thing that happens. That's what happens when the owner steps in, like, well, I'm going to take this call, or I'm going to deal with this situation, or I'm going to do this thing just this once. It makes them feel not trusted. They're not sure, did I do something wrong? Is this your job now? Am I like, what the heck's going on here? So yeah, I love that analogy. Coaches stay on the sidelines, they stay in the dugout, they stay on the bench. Players play the game. They put the points on the board. A key to this is avoiding bad hires. What typically leads people to make bad hires, and what can be done to solve it? How do you prevent making bad hires?
If you can avoid bad hires, you can make only good hires. You're just going to have the most successful organization no matter what you do. So a lot of what we've been talking about, when I do a hire, I try to really talk and get to know the person, and often take multiple interviews. And, Derrik and I knew each other for a long time. I knew what he was about, and we still went through multiple interviews to try to figure out, what this person's about. But I think you have to identify if they have the A player characteristics. That's a big thing. Do they have the A player characteristics? This doesn't mean that they're already that successful, right? We just mentioned some great basketball greats, and, Michael Jordan. Sometimes you're going to get a person like that you see that talent emerging, and maybe you're the first coach that's helping to emerge that talent, right? So you have to know how to identify unique talent. Derrik has a great quote for this, and I'll let him give it, where he talks about hiring for integrity and so forth. But I'm going to go the other way, and I'll let Derrik take the positive way, and I'm going to go the negative way. One thing I do is I try to filter out toxic or cancerous people as best as I can. Because one of the most dangerous things is when I accidentally hire somebody that's very toxic in the organization, a troublemaker. Sometimes you can call them militant. I call them activists. Just anybody that's going to cause you a lot of trouble in your company. I try to work really hard to identify that. Modern term is triggered, right? I will purposely sometimes in my interview try to trigger the person I'm interviewing to see if they end up being kind of, for lack of a better word, a psycho. I don't want to bring a very toxic person into the organization. And again, I told you, I'm taking the negative side of this. I'm going to let Derrik take the positive side of this one. But I try to really be careful to filter out people that come in and destroy, because there are people that come in and they're very cancerous. I had an experience where I had to deal with a cancerous individual on the construction site. And fortunately, in this occasion, just real quick, what happened is they're working on a job site, and just coincidentally, a water line got hit down the road, so it shut off our water. The customer we were working for had provided porta potties, but they decided against it. They want us to provide them now, so they picked up the porta potty, and then we had to provide our own. And then I happened to send a D10 bulldozer back. So this is in the construction arena. This is not busy. So those three things together, I guess, indicated to the leader I had on site, the crew leader, that the company was going bankrupt, right? So my customer calls me and he says, I don't know what's going on, but your whole crew is gathered around. There's like 20 guys. All my machines are shut down. The guys are gathered around. They're all kind of talking. And so I called to the job site and I said, what's going on? I'm 45 minutes away. He says, well, we'd like you to tell us what's going on, Isaac. We'd like you to come and look us in the eyes and face us and tell us what's going on in the company right now. This is the crew leader. Like, this is the boss on site. And he's just literally, raising the intensity of the job site. He's sowing these seeds of chaos and creating panic and mayhem. And so I said, okay, I'll be there in 45 minutes. And so while I was driving, I had this thought in my head, and I just thought, this is like a mutiny, like on a pirate ship. Like, the only thing I can do is kill the first mate. Like, that's the only way I restore order. So I went there, walked in the job site trailer, fired the guy in charge, put the next guy in charge, asked everybody else, do you want to keep working or do you want to not? We're fine as a company, but we're not going to have this kind of chaos happen from our leadership. Not just because of that experience, but from many experiences, I try to filter out those kind of characters while also looking for A players.
I'll throw out one more negative thing. My favorite interview question to try to filter out the drama queens and the psychos is this. Tell me about a time somebody did you wrong at work. The A players will generally, they're quiet, thinking, and maybe they'll come up with something. But the psychos and the drama queens, well, let me tell you about the last guy did this, and this guy did this to me, and there was this guy, and if they release a litany of people who've done them wrong, then you can rest assured you're going to be the next one on that list, and it's just a matter of happening. Yeah, so
that's a great point, Todd. Thanks for that.
Yeah, I love that question. And Todd, I've heard the question asked before, but people say it differently, and it's loaded. They'll say, tell me about a time you were wronged at work and how did you handle it? But the how did you handle it part, I think, makes it loaded in a way that it's, okay, well, I handled it properly and I did this. I love that you're cutting that off. And it's just like, hey, tell me about a time you were wronged at work. What happened?
So, Derrik, you can take the positive on how do you avoid making bad hires?
I'm going to talk about this the way, Todd, I've heard you talk in many of your other podcasts about systematizing your business, because I love that phrase. We talk so much here about systems and processes. So I think when you look at an organization, when people are complaining about all the problems they have, forget about all of those problems. You don't have all of those problems. You have a people problem. You have one problem. Because if you had great people, most of those problems are never going to get to you because people will solve them themselves. So if you can systematize a business, let's talk about the A players, how to hire them, where to find them. I would look at it and categorically say you have one problem and it's a people problem. Now, how do you solve that? Where do you find them? How do you hire them and recruit them? How do you manage them? And then how do you continue to grow and level them up? So if you can think through that and systematize that, because again, even as an owner or a leader, if you have a people problem, well, look at it at its core and go, where am I finding my people? How can I be more intentional about that? It goes back to the Chick-fil-A thing. Go back to the draft. Stop trying to win a championship when you're 70 games into a season. It's too late. So create a system that says, this is where I find people. And it can be different. I was just out in Indianapolis with our Fleet Watcher group, and they were talking about this amazing organization in Indianapolis that's growing like crazy. And the way the guy did it was he started going into some of these high schools and some of these tech colleges and presenting and talking about his business and the technology they use and what makes them different. And he's pulling the best people out of that business that had never considered construction before. So where are you finding your people? How do you hire them and recruit them? How are you managing? And then what opportunities are going to level them up? So I would say there first, right? But then you go to the other side from the quote that Isaac had talked about. One of the things that I love to do through the interview process is I will give people 6 words. And I say, hey, these are the 6 words that we hire off of, fire off of, and promote off of. So every decision in relation to whether you work here and whether you continue to get opportunity here is based around these 6 words. I would like you to rank them in order. If you were in my shoes, sitting in this chair, what order do you put these in value? And the 6 words are, and I put them in this order every time to not give away how I believe it should exist, but it's experience, capacity, motivation, integrity, understanding, and knowledge. So those are the 6 words. And then I'll just hand them a dry erase marker and have them go through it. Now, ranking it matters, but I want to hear about why they rank it that way. What's your thought behind it? What are your values behind the words rather than just trying to say like, maybe Derrik wants it this way? Because you can hear when they start to articulate the order in which they put them in. And the quote I stole from D. Hawk, the CEO of Visa, but the quote is this: hire and promote first on the basis of integrity. Second, motivation. Third, capacity. Fourth, understanding. Fifth, knowledge. And last and not least, experience. Without integrity, motivation can be dangerous. Without motivation, capacity is impotent. Without capacity, understanding is limited. Without understanding, knowledge is meaningless. Without knowledge, experience is blind. Experience is easy to provide and quickly put to good use by people with all the other qualities. It's one of the best business quotes I've ever read in my life. I immediately read it and said, I've been making decisions this way and hiring and firing, promoting my whole life, and I've never understood it. I've never articulated it this way. I'm taking this and I'm using it as a baseline way to make decisions, because especially for someone who's been in leadership, Todd, you know the difference between someone who values integrity first and motivation second versus the other way around. And Dee says it perfectly. Someone with motivation who lacks integrity is extremely dangerous.
Derrik, I know you've got to run. This is probably a good spot to land right now. So, Derrik, if people want to learn more about Busybusy and what you guys are up to and how you can help them, where's the best place for them to go?
Yeah, so our website, busybusy.com. You can go on there. You can also just go right onto the App Store and download the app. Take a look at it. Again, it's labor management focused. So it's time tracking, it's daily project reports, it's supervisor input, job costing. Like, we're ultimately saying communication from the office to the field and field to the office needs to improve, and let's use technology to do that. You can also find us on the Align Technologies website. You can find us either of those places. We're happy to have somebody reach out. We do a free trial where you can actually trial the product for 14 days and get a feel for it. Because again, there's no point in having a product if it's not going to help your business.
And Isaac, if folks want to follow you or learn more about what you're up to, where's the best place for them to go?
Probably the just website techridge.com. So, everything we've been talking about today, they're going to get more help from by going to Busybusy with Derrik, But as far as what I'm doing, it's in land development now on TechRidge.
Great stuff. Well, gentlemen, I appreciate it. This has been fantastic. I'm sure we could talk for hours, but I think we're at a good stopping point. And as an A player, we've got to be prompt and get to the next thing. So I appreciate it, guys.
Thank you.
Great channeling you, Todd.
Hey, it's Todd here. And one more thing before you go. Look, if you own a construction business and you want to put the right systems in place so you can either scale it up, maybe you want to step away from it, be able to take a proper vacation, maybe you want to sell it someday, maybe you just want to have more freedom, or maybe make it more profitable, or maybe you just want to get out of constant firefighting mode and make your phone stop ringing all the time. You really have 3 options if you want to make a meaningful change in your business. Option 1 is do nothing. Status quo, keep doing the same things, getting the same results. Option 2, you can DIY it. You can do it yourself. You can reinvent the wheel. You can read books, listen to podcasts, try to piece together a solution, use trial and error. Or option number 3, if you want meaningful change, is to find a proven system that delivers the results you're looking for. Sort of like if you use software for project management or for your bookkeeping, I assume you probably didn't try to code your own software. You found a proven system that delivered the results you're looking for, right? Well, if you're looking for a proven system to systematize your business, we've helped hundreds of construction business owners implement our systems in their business, specifically our Nail the Handoff pre-construction process. in their business. It works for home builders, remodelers, commercial general contractors. It also works really well for trade contractors like electricians, concrete contractors, site, utility, plumbing. And it's part of our Systematize Your Construction Business program. So if you want to see what systematizing your business looks like, what nailing the handoff looks like, and the positive side effects that come with that, then the next step would be to schedule a free business evaluation call with my team. And you could do that by going to constructionleadingedge.com/apply, APPLY, or just go to our website, constructionleadingedge.com, and tap the Apply Now button. You'll learn about the 5-step process we've helped hundreds of people implement to systematize their construction business. Most importantly, you'll get an objective third-party evaluation of your business to answer one really big question. Is your business designed to fail, or is it designed to succeed? So let me ask you this. If your business was unintentionally designed to fail, when would you rather find out? Now, while there's time to do something about it, or later on when it's maybe too late? This business evaluation call is totally free. There are no strings attached, no pressure. And it could be the best hour you've spent working on your business in a long time. So our schedule fills up pretty quickly. So if you're interested, go over to constructionleadingedge.com/apply, or go to constructionleadingedge.com and tap the Apply Now button to book your business evaluation call. Hey, thanks for listening. I hope you got value out of this podcast. If you could take a moment, if you did, and leave a rating or a review or share this with somebody who needs to hear it, I would appreciate it. Todd Dawalt from Construction Leading Edge. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next time.